I wanted to ask, you brought up Iraq and it reminded me. Did you see that they put out like a bounty for they were going to pay 150 million, like whatever their currency is, for anyone who captures or gives information leading to the capture of like embassy workers or like high-ranking people, because they were like trying to help the IRGC's fight?
Wait, what?
Yeah, my
No.
husband sent it to me. He of course he's a DoD worker, but this is not like classified information. He's part of like a group, and so he gets different alerts and things. I will How do I do that? Oh, I guess I'll send you a screenshot of it in the on WhatsApp.
Or a
But
link?
my husband sent it to
Like,
me and he said, "You want 150 mil?" I said, "What is that, like 35 bucks?" I said, "No,
uh,
thanks. I think I'll keep you around." Plus they said high value targets, so I think
oh,
we're good. Just teasing him like he's not that important, but yeah, very interesting. So I will send you a screenshot of that. Anyway, so we have a question from Samantha in the chat, and it reads, I'm pretty sure Armin said before that he believes for people who can't afford food, education, and healthcare, that the government should give them money for those things. But what about people who can't afford basic shelter, running water, heating, basic clothing, or shampoo, toothpaste, tampons, maxi pads?
yeah, I mean, I do believe in universal basic income. And I do believe that the government coming in from the demand side rather than supply side to make sure that there is a minimum that nobody's under, right? And I do believe that the best way to do that is to just put cash into the hands of people, and that's the best way to support the poor without messing with the balance, the supply and demand balance. So there should be a minimum level of lifestyle that nobody's under. That's what I believe, and I think that that level of government involvement that doesn't mess with the market, doesn't mess with the balance of the In fact, actually, this is a good way to not even mess with the private sector because you're not competing with the private sector. In fact, that's a good way to boost the private sector, because what you're doing is that you're increasing the customers. You're increasing the number of customers in the market. So you're technically also subsidizing businesses, and you're increasing, instead of reducing competition, you're increasing competition, because now the businesses that are in the market, they have to compete for more customers, right? There are more customers in the market. And yeah, go on, Samantha, you wanted to add to that?
So,
Or
why does he call himself a capitalist if he believes in taking care of the poor?
okay, there's nothing in capitalism. Okay, Samantha, I know you might disagree with me, but capitalism does not mean fuck the poor. Okay, capitalism does not mean fuck the poor. You give me thumbs down, but that's like, I don't know why you're disagreeing with me. That's not the definition of capitalism. You might disagree with me, but the reason why I support capitalism is because I think it's the best way to take care of the poor. Capitalism is not anti-poor. Capitalism helps the economy grow faster, and a faster growing economy will be able to afford to take care of the poor better than an economy that is not growing. And we have more poor people in communist societies than in capitalist societies. So the idea that capitalism means that we shouldn't take care of the poor is basically what they told you in the cult that you were involved in, and that is not at all the case. And capitalism also doesn't mean zero government involvement. Capitalism does mean that we have to be careful about where the government gets involved, and try to remove the government for places that is unnecessary for a bit for it to be involved. But it doesn't mean that we're not, capitalists are not anarchists. Capitalists is not like against any form of state or authority or government involvement. In fact, if you read the Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, that was basically the foundation of capitalist ideas. Even in the very foundations of capitalist ideas, it introduces government involvement, like government getting involved in the market, even with positive externalities and negative externalities. Like, the Wealth of Nations admits that the government is blind, the market is blind to certain to certain things, to certain benefit and costs, if they're not involved in the trade. And it actually provides strategies for for what the government to subsidize if there are positive externalities that the market is blind to, and what the government and for the government to tax things for the trade that has negative externalities for the and the market is blind to, as a way to reduce that type of economic activity. So capitalism involves government involvement. Capitalism involves in basically getting involved in certain places that the market is not good at basically adjusting for, and that includes in helping the worse off. A really good strategy to get the highest amount of people involved in the market for them to be productive members of society. However, below a certain level of poverty and lifestyle, you are completely paralyzed. Like, it doesn't matter how much the market is motivating you to get involved in the market and work. You're so poor that even if you want to contribute, there's no way in for you, and the market has no way to adjust for that. So that's another role for the government to come and give you a lift, so that you could actually give you the basic necessities to live your life, so that you're actually in a position that you could actually enter the market.
I
And you're
think
saying
you're
I was told
describing.
capitalism. Oh yes, so she's saying in the chat, I was told that capitalism means no government involvement in market or help the poor. That is, well, that's a lie. That is not at all what capitalism is about. That is anarchism. Being against all form of government is anarchism. It's not capitalism. Or
I
some
think,
people
Armin,
might call it. Some people, yeah.
you're describing a system that's disagreeing about how it is that we should help different people, whereas Samantha at least was presumably taught in the cult that it's a difference in the morals about whether we should be trying to help people.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. So Samantha, the people who support capitalism, the most of them believe that that's also the best. I mean, this is empirically true, Samantha. You could go research this. This is empirically true. Nothing has lifted more people out of poverty more than capitalism. Absolutely nothing. So if you care about the poor, the best way to support the poor is capitalism.
Armin, do you mind if Nell Bunny comments on this as well? She had raised her hand
Yeah, no,
to
of course,
comment.
of course,
Okay.
of course.
And then
Love to.
Uncle Jeff, please.
I just wanted to say that I don't agree with a universal basic income, and the reason why is because if you offer that, then it actually what happens is society's expectations are lowered to that minimum, and they don't strive for anything higher. And I know this because a very good friend of mine grew up on a probably one of the roughest council estates in the UK. I don't know if you mean understand what rough means, but dangerous, extremely. So I'll explain what council estate is. It's social housing. So you don't pay for your house, and your house doesn't belong to you. So it's owned by the council. You pay into the council, that pays for police, and it also pays for council estates. Now, the way you get on the council is if you into a council house is if you don't make very much money, and then they put you in a council house. Another way is if you're a unwed mother, they'll put you in a council house. There's lots of ways you get put in a council house. And the thing about it is that if you are in that environment, it means that that is what you view life through. You don't view it as I'm going to get a job, I'm going to go to university, I'm going to get a degree in something useful, get a really good paying job, and I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to own things. I'm going to strive for something higher than what I have right now. If it gets handed to you, then you don't value it. And it means that yeah, a poverty mindset, exactly, BT. And you get trapped in it. And so my friend, he was in, and people would say here in the UK, they say this all the time, that people don't have more babies to get a bigger house. No, people don't really do that. Yes, they do. They do that. And everybody knows it who's on a council estate. They all know that. Everybody. That is just what people do. I want a bigger house, so I'm going to have more kids. And the kids grow up believing that their only way is to get a girl. It'll be like a boy that grew up on a council estate will get a girl pregnant, so they get a council house,
So
and this
Nilbani,
happens all the time.
I think you're describing two different things. Social
Okay.
housing and universal basic income are completely different, right? And I don't believe in social housing. I think you should give people the money to be able to just go into the market and buy what they need. So those types of programs, like the results, I think is messes with the market. It doesn't encourage economic activity. Universal basic income, actually, studies suggest that they do. Not on all people. Not on all people. It is true that if you give the basic income to certain people, that would be enough for them, and they will not work. But you have to look at the number of people who will become not economically active, and would have become economically active otherwise if it wasn't for the universal basic income, and compare that to the people who were not economically active because they were too paralyzed because of the poverty to enter the market, and now because of the universal basic income, now they are active. So you
No,
have
I
to actually
completely
compare these.
agree. I am going to interrupt you because I know it, because I completely agree. Now, I agree that having money means that they spend money in the economy and that grows the economy. That's good for the economy. So I do agree with that completely. My
And you
problem with
agree
it
that
was,
that's not the same as social housing. Social housing is a completely different program
yeah, it
compared to
is.
universal. Yeah, yeah,
But
okay.
the other side of this is that it would be better if they did something for that money, because then, and you give them those opportunities to do something for that money, because then it's a reward for something they've actually done. Now, a good example is the New Deal that pulled people out of poverty from in the Great Depression.
So here's the thing though. There are certain people that are so poor and outside even any friends or networks, or that, like, telling, like, the idea of setting up a program that you need to do, like, they wouldn't even show up. Like, they wouldn't even know about this. They don't even know how to, they don't even have the social skills to communicate with somebody to figure out, like, what are we even doing here, right? They're completely checked, like, they are so paralyzed that even introducing the idea of, like, oh, here's a few steps that you need to do, like, as soon as you start talking to them, their mind is like, I don't even know what they're living a completely different world. And to get them to the point where they could even understand that there's another reality and there's other options out there, you need to basically give them some, make them be able to take care of some, like, I'm talking about extreme poverty. I'm not talking about certain people that you consider poor because they can't afford to eat out or something like that, or that they can't pay their mortgage. I'm talking about a crippling level of poverty, that the idea of even communicating with these people that this is what you need to do to get paid, like, they live on a different planet. Like, they're so invisible to the rest of us. Right now, when I say poor, a lot of you think about, like, oh, somebody that it can't pay their mortgage. The idea of even having a mortgage means that that kind of a person lives a rich life compared to the people I'm thinking about, right? They're
No,
completely paralyzed. There's no
okay,
way to get them. Yeah.
I that isn't what I imagine at all. Okay, let
No,
me
I'm
put
not
it this
talking
way.
about you specifically. I'm talking
Yeah,
about, like, in
when I
general. Yeah.
but this is my opinion, and you're arguing with me. So I'm saying that that isn't the perspective that I have, and that's not where I'm coming from. When I think of poverty, I do actually think of my father. My father grew up in the Great Depression, and his mother couldn't feed both him and his sister. So my grandmother gave him to a family because, and they were a horrible family. And everything that he worked for, they took from him. He had a newspaper route, and he saved his money. He saved up $5 to buy a bike. They took the bike away from him so that he had to keep, and they gave it to their own kid. So that's crippling poverty. But the thing is that the New Deal gave him a job doing forestry work, and that took him out of that environment. It gave him work to do, and he got paid for it. And it was better for him than living with that family. And that's what I mean by money, not just money, but actually having something that you can do and to get that money rather than here's some money.
I see what you're saying. I just want to make sure that we look at the studies in these. I don't believe in a system that people who are not contributing to the society get punished with hunger, homelessness, and lack of
I,
access to healthcare.
I'm
I
not saying
do-
punishing them. I'm saying giving
the
a system that
reason
actually
why I'm
allows them
responding,
to work.
hold
Okay.
on, let me finish. The reason why I'm responding generally, I know I'm talking to you, but I want to, when I give an answer, I'm thinking of a broader audience. I know I'm talking to you, but I always think of a broader audience when I'm
Okay.
speaking. Okay, so I'm not saying it. Even if we're not punishing them, they effectively are being punished. I think that the way that the capitalism works the most effectively is that people are motivated to work harder for the sake of having a better lifestyle, but not for the sake of not starving. Okay, not for the sake of being able to pay for, I don't know, their medicine. That is not an effective way to motivate people. That cripples, that is crippling. There is a reason why we call it crippling poverty. I do want people to be motivated to work harder because they want a bigger TV or a nicer car or more vacation. Okay, that's what they should be. That should be the motivating factor. It shouldn't be that I want to eat. It shouldn't be that I don't want to live in the streets. It shouldn't be that I can't pay for the medicine of my mother. It should be that I want to be able to afford to go to Japan. I want a nicer car. That should be the motivation for people to work harder. That's my philosophy.
But I'm not
And if some
saying
people
that
don't,
I'm not saying
oh,
that
sorry. Yeah.
okay, let me put this way, going back to my father. Him being taken out, him actually having the opportunity to be, it was like all the different projects. So those projects benefited everybody and it benefited all of the kids that were involved in those projects. So it got them to actually do something and they were doing something worthwhile and they got money for it and that was good for them and that was very positive. And then they weren't and so it made them, so yes, they had all their basic needs met. They were being fed, they were being clothed, they had a roof over their head and all of those good things. And then they could actually start thinking about other things like what you were saying, striving for new stuff or maybe going to university someday or things like that. That's, I'm
All right.
just
So,
saying it's a different
yeah,
vehicle of getting them out of that poverty that is much more positive, that is something where they're actually doing something in return for the
so
money that makes them comfortable and saves their life and makes things that so that
I
they're
don't
not
want. I,
worry about
So I
food.
don't want to I don't want to keep debating this because I know other people are waiting on the list as
Okay.
well. But I just want to mention that I was looking at there are every study that I'm looking at shows that UBI doesn't make people stop working. So, few of them do, but every single large study that has been done shows that people continue to work even after UBI, and it actually does get transfer some people from not working to working, and the people who were working, the vast majority of them, they don't stop working with UBI. That's what the studies show.